there was even a point this morning where I was like, yo, I don't feel protected.
Yeah.
I don't feel covered. I don't feel like, that you were being my covering in those moments. And honestly, you weren't. And then I ended up telling you, like, yeah, like you broke my heart.
Yeah.
And a part of my trust was kind of just like clipped.
Yeah. What's up? What's up? What's up? What's up? I'm sorry. We're back.
I was afraid you were gonna wake up the baby.
I thought so too.
Yeah.
We are back. It has been a very long time, but
only a few weeks. It's been like a month.
I feel like it's been a minute.
It's been a minute since they saw you.
That's a fact. I wasn't on the last episode.
Yeah.
Hopefully you guys checked it out. I think this episode is going to be possibly one of our most transparent episodes that we have had.
Yeah.
We have been super transparent in the past. Mm-hmm. And I think we're even learning to be even more transparent as we are figuring out certain things.
Yeah.
We had an interesting conversation even before we dropped this, even before we started recording.
Yeah.
Very interesting conversation. I think a lot of healing came from that conversation. Mm-hmm. And now we're bringing you guys a little bit in.
Yeah. Into what we are learning through, growing through, and healing through and loving through in real time. So, yeah, like Neil said, I think this is going to be a very transparent episode. And one that we hope a lot of you can resonate with, or if you don't, you know somebody that can relate to it. So yeah, let's just get into it.
Let's get into it. Guys, we had the sex.
We did.
We had the sex.
For the first time since the baby.
No. First time, like, it's been almost like close to 2 months.
Yes.
It's been close to 2 months. For my guys.
Oh, you mean like close to 2 months since the last time we had sex?
Yeah.
Oh,
yes.
Okay. I was like,
for you,
sure.
We're like, oh, no, wait 6 weeks. No, it has been 2 long months. All right.
Why do I feel like you're exaggerating? But actually, no, you're not exaggerating.
No.
Okay.
It's been 2 months, guys. And we had this sex. We had the sex, and very, very interesting, right? Uh-huh. Because I think we both had fears going into it.
Absolutely.
Because there's a lot out on social media and whatnot, and there's just a lot of thought that goes into, I guess, like
sex postpartum.
Yeah.
Like, I have a whole new body. So there are, like, wow, thankfully, I still have all of my body parts. I have wider hips. My breasts are fuller because I'm breastfeeding. Get out of here. Yeah, like, did I say my hips are wider? I don't know. But
yep, your hips are wider.
Like, there's just a lot more of certain parts of my body that I'm not used to. And yeah, there were, I want to say, like, yeah, a lot of insecurities that I had before I delivered. Like, okay, what am I going to look like afterwards? Not for the mere fact that I wanted to be skinny, because I wasn't super skinny before I was pregnant. But yeah, I was like, okay, so how am I going to function in this new body? Like, what am I going to do? I don't just want to be, a milk factory for my kid. Like, I also want to enjoy my body. So what does that look like? But also because it had been a while since we had sex and there wasn't this huge belly in front of me, what was that going to be like, So yeah, I did have a lot of apprehensions going into it, and I was wondering, okay, like, how is this going to go? But how did it go?
It was great. I think we talked about it beforehand, before us like actually having sex. We talked about it, like, I think a little bit after Nova got here, and there's different thoughts that goes into it when you're thinking, okay, is it going to feel different?
Yeah.
I think that for us was the big, and I know for me, I was like, okay, I'm not really sure what I'm walking into. Like, you just pushed out a whole kit.
Yeah.
A whole entire kit.
Yeah.
Like, is it gonna feel different? Am I still gonna enjoy it? Like, those are legit fears, because you think about, like, okay, if I didn't enjoy it, it's like, okay, like, what do we do from here?
Right.
Yeah. But I can say it was enjoyable. It was great.
Yeah.
It was literally great. We are currently waiting for Nicole to get
oh my
her
gosh,
implant in,
so that we don't have another baby.
So we do
immediately.
not. Listen, your boy was ready to risk it all. I was like, another kid, not so bad. I was ready to risk it all, but we did not risk it all. We are not trying to do back to back.
No,
we are not trying to do
not
that.
At all.
But no, I really enjoyed it. I told Nicole after that, I just, and it sounds weird, but I just enjoy being like in your body. Like, sounds weird.
It does
sound super weird, but
it sounds very pervy.
It sounds super pervy, but the intimacy that comes from that, that connection that comes from having sex with the person that you're going to spend the rest of your life with is amazing. There's nothing like it. So I just enjoyed the fact that I was back there, back doing that. And for us, this is literally going to be the start of us having a somewhat normal sex life again.
Yeah.
But
because we had only had a normal sex life for maybe a month and a half before I got pregnant.
Yeah.
So I've literally been pregnant for a majority of our marriage as of right now. We've been married for almost a year and a couple of weeks. And for 9 of those 12 months, I was pregnant. So yeah, it was definitely a difficult thing to navigate. And yeah, honestly, like when I first got pregnant, my libido was shot. We talked about that a little bit a couple of podcast episodes ago, but yeah, my libido was shot, did not want to have sex. And then I was worried that once I got out of that trimester, that postpartum, my libido was going to be shot again.
Yeah.
Thankfully it wasn't. I actually was ready to have sex a few days after we got home, and that created its own crisis within and of itself. But
first of all, context, y'all know, story time. Story time. Yo, first of all, this is the first time we're back in the bed and whatnot, because we had been sleeping on the couch because Nicole couldn't go back up and down the stairs. So we had been sleeping on the couch. We finally go back up in the bedroom, and Shorty is wilding. Shorty is wilding like we just went to summer camp, and this is our first time being away from our parents.
What?
All over your boy's body. And I'm just like,
but you're complaining because you normally want me to be on your body. So
I'm not complaining. I was complaining for the circumstance that was going on. Shorty just gave birth like last week. So
that's very true.
Graphic, but there are things that are coming out that no man should see.
You didn't see them.
I knew in my head that it was coming out of your body, and you're over here like Bloody Mary just all on me. Like, I want you. I'm like, okay.
That wasn't why you were like that. You were like that. No, I'm gonna get blue balls. Get off me. Get off me. So it had nothing to do with what my body was doing.
Yes, it did. It had everything to do with your body was doing.
No, it had everything to do with the fact that my doctor said you have to wait 6 weeks.
6 weeks.
But he's like, you're gonna give me blue balls. We can't do this. Stop. Get off me. Mind you, one of his biggest complaints in our marriage about me is that I'm not on his body enough. But then when I'm on his body, he's like, no, get off me. Get off me.
I was getting ready to say something. But yes, because you had things coming out of your body, bro. Like, and you were 1 week. You still had stitches.
I just wanted to kiss my husband, okay? But I couldn't even kiss him. Like, he didn't even want me to kiss him.
It was Cap. It's big, biggity facts, Cap. Whatever. But yes, it was great. We enjoyed it. But the main reason why we're here is because of the conversation that we had after.
Yeah.
For context that people that don't know, because we have never talked about it. Since I want to say 11 years old, all the way up until I'm 29 now, about to be 30. I have struggled with a porn addiction. Yeah, since I was a kid. Nicole knew this. This was not a surprise to her. We talked about it before we got married. We talked about while we were dating and whatnot. We had not spoken about it in the context of our marriage, though.
Yeah.
So we have maybe spoke about it. I want to say maybe 2 months into our marriage to like a month into our marriage and whatnot. She had asked me
Maybe
how.
in a few weeks because
Yeah.
yeah, I think by the time we were like a month into our marriage, I was no a month and a couple of weeks. I found out we were pregnant. But yeah, I think it's a couple of weeks into our marriage. I did ask you, and you were good.
Yeah, I was straight. I was straight. And what I mean by that, like, so when I moved in with Nicole, that was something I was fearful about because I didn't want to bring that into our marriage. But I'd been straight. Like, I moved in May last year, and all the way up until like July, I was good,
Yeah,
completely good. Um, context. There was also a period in our marriage where I was working in a particular building that I hated, and I was stressed. Like,
yeah,
I'm not a crier. That job broke me down. I was pissed off. I wanted to quit. Whole big thing. We'll probably talk about it another time. But from that, because I was so stressed, it affected us while we were having sex.
yep.
And I started to struggle with ED while we were having sex. And for me, I'm like, what is going on? Like, I want to make the love with my wife, but my friend is like, no. So struggling with that. Um, and out of my own fear, letting Nicole know that, hey, I think I have this problem and whatnot, not knowing like what to do about it, just a lot of fear. And I decided to, all right, I'm gonna watch porn and masturbate, right? To see if that is the issue. And it wasn't. I was good. Like, my guy was good. We were straight. But what came from that was I was pissed off because I had been technically sober for like 3 months.
Yeah.
And this is what caused me to fall.
Mhm.
So I was pissed off. I didn't let Nicole know at all because it was shame tied to that. And I didn't really want to, I just didn't want to bring that up because I was already dealing with the shame of dealing with ED. And then on top of that, dealing with the whole porn addiction stuff and
Yeah.
that being like kind of a touchy topic for us.
Yeah.
I didn't want to bring it up. Thank God ED joint was just like
Stress.
it was literally stress.
Yeah.
And I literally dealt with it for like maybe like a few days.
Yeah.
And I thought my life was over.
Bruh, I had Blue Chew at my front door.
Blue Chew, your boy.
I was like, what is this?
Why Blue Chew, if y'all want to sponsor the podcast.
No, please don't. I do have a question for you before you continue.
Yeah.
When you chose to not tell me, was that because of previous conversations that we had before we got married?
Yeah. Yeah.
So more context.
Yeah.
I had a conversation with Neil before we got married that like, yo, I refuse to get married to you while you're still struggling with this. Like, I just like, I can't do it. I have a family history with porn, and it was a part of what kind of like severed ties in my family. So I was just like, no, like I'm not doing this. I don't want to. This is not a battle I'm willingly going to fight and pick up. Like, no. So yeah, my hope and prayer was that like it was done with and over with before we got married. And so yeah, when he had moved in, we got married about 2 weeks legally. We got married legally about 2 weeks after he moved in, and then our wedding was in June. So yeah, by the time like I asked him like, "Hey, how have you been?" He was like, "Yo, I'm good. Like I haven't had any problems." I was like, oh, "Okay, we're fine."
Yeah.
But I didn't check in anymore.
Yeah.
And I think one with me, I will say Neil's addiction is his addiction. That's not something that I can fix or that's something that I can heal him from. But what I can say is, as his wife and as his friend, I am responsible for checking in with my husband and seeing like what's going on. And I hadn't been, um, obviously because I was sick our first trimester, but just because like I honestly I was arrogant thinking like I didn't need to. 'Cause I'm like, oh, it's not my problem. It's over. It's done with. But I should have. And again, like it is his problem to fix for himself, but overall it does impact us.
Yeah. And I knew like So that time happened, and there were some other times that happened as well throughout, the course of our marriage.
Yeah.
And it we talked about it before the podcast and a couple days ago as well.
Yeah.
But a lot of it stemmed from either like hurt or rejection, and not so much so fully on Nicole's part. But knowing that, all right, this, and my heart goes out to any guys that do struggle with that and their wife is pregnant, For some of y'all listening that have never struggled with porn or anything like that, like, you probably won't understand.
Yeah.
But especially with us going into marriage, it's like, all right, we're getting ready to have just the sex, all of the sex.
And you think that's like the end all be all, like that's the cure,
but yeah, we had a very short sprint of having sex, and then literally Nicole started morning sickness. And then on top of that, I was transitioning, leaving from my old job to a new job. So I was home more often and whatnot. And my gauge and my focus was solely on, all right, I got to make sure Nicole's good. So making sure, like, yo, are you good? Did you take your medicine and whatnot? How do you feel right now? Is there anything you need? All right, I'm cooking because I was home for like 3 months. So I'm like, all right, I'm cooking, I'm cleaning, I'm helping out around the house and being just present to her. It is selfish of me in that moment, especially with my thinking was like, yo, how can I like tell my wife that, yo, I want and need to have sex right now, and you're literally hurling your guts out and you're like baking our child on the inside of you.
Yeah.
So yeah, there were moments where it was like, yo, you're alone right now. The enemy would be talking to you. Yo, you're alone right now. Like, why not? You know what I mean? That's what caused the fall. So I could never fully ever put, because I know some people be like, oh, then it's Nicole's fault or it's the wife's fault or something like that. Where in all actuality, it's not. Like, me as the man, like, I have to put my foot down on the ground and make a stance. Like, am I going to allow this to become a more present thing throughout the years, or do I stop now?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because especially not using Nova as a crutch or anything like that, but I believe in generational curses. Like, generational curses are real, and that's never something that I want to continue with my family or anything like that. Especially with Nova being here, it's never something I want to continue with my legacy. Like, we talk about legacy a lot on this podcast, and that's not something I want to be tied to my legacy. I've been struggling with it since I was 11 years old. You know what I mean? I got introduced to it at like 8 at a friend's house. Like, so this has been something that's been with me for a minute. There's been a lot of progress. I remember when there was a moment where I literally could not go without it. You know what I mean? Now it's definitely easier. One of the things that we spoke about that would help during this transition, during this time right now, is one, just being more open with each other about it. And again, Nicole is not my accountability partner. That can't come from Nicole. I can't put that weight on Nicole, but you are my wife. So it's like, I still need to, just fill you in. You know what I mean? Fill you in. And we spoke about how this is a difficult topic to like talk about because, well, and I can even ask that question for you, hearing about it the first time and now, what has been like your core reaction when this does come up?
Well, when we first talked about it, when we had sex a couple of days ago, honestly, I laughed and I wasn't sure why I was cracking up. I think it was nerves at the time. But the more I started to like sit with it, well, I will say I was thankful that you told me. Because you could have held this back for like the next couple of months, the next couple of years, and then I would have found out. Somehow, some way. Like, I had an inkling that I should have asked him a couple of weeks ago, but like I ignored it because I was like, no, like this wouldn't happen during the pregnancy. Like, absolutely not. And again, like my own arrogant thinking, but yeah, I was happy that he ended up telling me because one, it led us to have a conversation afterwards that we had a couple of hours ago, and then us doing this podcast. But also I think taking the active steps that we're going to be taking in the next couple of days. Um, so yeah, I was thankful at first, but then the more it started to settle in, self-doubt and insecurity started to like hit.
Yeah.
And so for like the last couple of days, I feel like I've gotten shorter and shorter with Neil when it comes to like conversation and just like being actively like present around him. And then this morning I was kind of just like distant. And I remember writing like in my prayer journal, like God help me to not be bitter because that's what I feel. Like I feel bitterness taking over because I'm mad. Like I thought we had this like handled. I didn't want this to be something that I was fighting in my marriage. There's so many other things that you
Yeah.
are fighting in marriage. This is not one of the things that I wanted to be actively fighting. And then I started wondering, I was like, yo, was it me? But he didn't do it like because he did it like while I was pregnant. So I'm like, how, like I couldn't perform as much as I was before because I was sick and just all these different things. So I started to, just go down that downward spiral. And yeah, it was hard.
Yeah.
It was really hard. There was even a point this morning where I was like, yo, I don't feel protected.
Yeah.
I don't feel covered. I don't feel like, yeah, that you were being my covering in those moments. And honestly, you weren't. And then I ended up telling you, like, yeah, like you broke my heart.
Yeah.
And a part of my trust was kind of just like clipped.
Yeah.
Because one, you didn't tell me, you waited to tell me. But then also because it happened.
Yeah.
And it happened when it happened.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. Like I said, like this has been something that we are in real time still dealing with, you know what I mean? And I think I've said it on the podcast before, we never want to bring on the podcast something that is like detrimental to our marriage and try to flesh it out on the podcast for views and whatnot. This is not that. Like even before we recorded, we waited hours and like we had a conversation hours ago.
Yeah.
And we had conversations beforehand as well because I knew that you weren't good. And I saw your face and I was like, all right, let's talk. I was like, because in my head, I was like, yo, we're not doing this podcast. Like, I don't care about the podcast that much.
Yeah.
Like, if us and our marriage is not good and we're trying to like front on the podcast and just make it seem like, oh, guys, 10 steps on how to keep your marriage great. Like,
honestly, I couldn't have done that. I wear my emotions on my sleeves. So.
Yeah. So this is not what that is. I think we both have our own beliefs when it comes to this particular thing. Because I know with me, like if I would have heard Nicole say that, like your response there, when we first had this conversation, I would have been like, bro, you're wilding. Yeah. Like you're bugging. Like this is me. This is what I'm dealing with. And you're bringing your opinions and how you feel into this. And it shouldn't be, that's how I felt previous. But now I can understand. Now I can understand how something like this can be the detriment to like our marriage. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, and just thinking about how the enemy does use porn and use cheating and use all these different things to break up what God has put together. Yeah. Because like you said, I could have hid this and been like, oh no, I've been straight. Like I've been good. Like, what? I've been straight. But that knocks out intimacy with our marriage in terms of honesty. And that's one thing that I think we pride ourselves on. Like, there's not really any conversation that happens within our marriage that we're afraid to talk about. There's a situation that comes up. We're very transparent and I know, especially with me, I'm like, all right, let's talk about it. I've been sitting there like an auntie with my like, let's talk about it. Like we're gonna, we finna hash this out. We're gonna go through it. You gonna hate me, I'm gonna hate you, but we're gonna come back together and we're gonna love each other. Like we're gonna rock out. So yeah, we are still figuring it out,
actively working through it. But one of the things I think we did agree on is that accountability is key.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny because that was one of the scriptures. I did not intend on reading this morning. So this is just God's timing. So I was reading Proverbs 5 this morning. I was actually talking about adultery.
Yeah.
And it was emphasizing the need for not just discipline, but accountability.
Yeah.
And so you can't really have discipline if you don't have accountability.
Yeah.
Right. So if we're hiding whatever our vices is, so he's being on Front Street with his vice right now, but we all have vices, honestly. So if we're not upfront about our vices with people that we know are good stewards of our hearts and are good stewards of us, then we will lack discipline, right? So without that accountability, without that discipline, you don't have self-control.
Yeah.
And it's very difficult for you to manage any vice without self-control. So I think one of the things that we agreed on was accountability, but also getting to a place where we're willing to ask for help in terms of accountability.
Yeah.
Because I think that was one of the things that I wasn't sure you were willing to do, because dealing with porn or porn addiction is shameful. I think shame has a way of like just robbing from you. So
Yeah.
it robs like even like your desire to ask for help because you're afraid of how, people are going to view you or what they're going to say or what's going to be exposed. But
I think when it comes to that, I don't really like, because Nicole was asking me like, you feel comfortable talking about this on the podcast? I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. Like, and I
wasn't sure. I was like,
yeah, no, I honestly meant that because I know that like porn addictions or whatever, like it may be a taboo topic to talk about, but there's mad people that struggle with it. Like person that you sitting next to right now might be struggling with it and y'all don't even know, and y'all might have a conversation. Yeah. You know what I mean? And I think it will only better you to have that conversation. Mm-hmm. Because even aside from the fact of being Christian, there's people that aren't Christian at all, don't believe in God, and they're like, yo, I can say like, yo, porn is detrimental to my well-being, my being altogether. Yeah. Like, I know porn desensitizes us from a lot of things. Like, Nicole could be affected by a sex scene. I'll watch a sex scene and I'll be like completely fine. And I know some people are like, oh, you think you're fine. No, I'm like, it don't do nothing for me or anything like that. I'll be straight, like just looking at a sex scene. But for Nicole, like,
I'm over here feeling violated. And I'm like, no, can we fast forward? And that has to do with trauma connected to a whole other thing. But yeah, like we just have different gauges.
And I think what Nicole said is 100% right in terms of, I know where I can get my help is the accountability aspect of it. Yeah. You know what I mean? You need people around you that are willing to check up on you. My biggest thing is the follow-up. Mm-hmm. And right now we're in a new city, we're in a new state right now, and we're at a new church as well. And the people at the church are amazing, but I know I need to do a better job in terms of reaching out to certain guys and whatnot. Yeah. Because I, on my own, have like past trauma from friendships and whatnot that I'm still like reversing and healing from.
But it still acts out like weirdly. So one of the things that even Neil mentioned a couple of days ago, right? So like we said, we go to an amazing church. Yeah. So after church, it's very likely that somebody will want to engage in conversation with us. Be like, yo, what's going on? How are you? La, la, la. And I'm here for it because I love genuine connection. Now, if it's like small talk, miss me with it. But every single time we've been like interacting with after church, it leads to a different conversation, and sometimes a little longer that will lead into like the next service. So we're there and the next service has already started. Neil on the other hand is like, yo, can we go? Like, let's get out of here.
That's not all right, but that's not 100% the case. I'm an introvert, right?
I'm an introvert too.
You're an introvert, but your tolerance is like, you have a better tolerance than I do.
I don't know if that's true.
I think you do. I think when you hit bottom,
you also don't like going to the grocery store.
Yeah, I love, let me, because we're getting ready to end this, but I love people. I love people. I love engaging with people. I love deep conversations. But going back to where I work at, I'm a manager at Amazon, and I babysit for a living. And that is from Monday all the way to Thursday for X amount of hours. I'm dealing with people. So yeah, sometimes
this time you're not dealing with people. Well, you're doing life with people.
Okay, and on that note, guys, we thank you for watching this episode. We thank you for the views and everything. I think this was a great episode. I think we shed a lot of light on a topic that does not get talked about and does not even get talked about in marriages. What we hope from this conversation is that you, if you're single, if you're in a relationship, that you will have that conversation with your person, that you will have that conversation with your friend that you know is struggling. You know what I mean? Yeah. Check up on the people in your life. Yeah. But
also, accountability is key. We talked about that. Accountability. And I don't think this will be the last time we talk about this. I believe there will be an update episode later down the line to come. And hopefully it's the start of, like you just said, like active conversations with other people, because like I said, all of us have vices, all of us have something that we're dealing with, that we're struggling with, but no one should be doing life alone. Nobody should lack community. Get connected to your church, get connected to your family, get connected to friends. That will hold you accountable, but do so from a loving area. Don't hide, don't run, don't wallow in shame, because shame is not your portion. There is help for you, and there's hope too. And I think that's something that I had to stick to this morning after my depot. Yeah. Normally we ask, so what have you learned? That there's hope. Yeah. That there's hope.
Yeah. I think we said a lot. So I think that's where we end it. As always, the music that you are listening to is from Nova's uncle, Kadeem Nichols. Please check him out below. He does an intro and an outro. Great, amazing. But until next time,